Hi, and welcome back to just a little bit of formation for our time while we are worshiping apart. I wanted to actually talk about the Christian calendar today because we have talked about a lot of prayers that go with different days of the calendar, but we haven't actually really talked about the calendar. So for today, we're going to be focusing on the Book of Common Prayer starting on page 15. So you're going to find information there about the calendar. So if you look at that, you will find that there are what we call principal feasts, and there are feasts that have dates with them and feasts that don't have dates with them. And there are some secular holidays included here. So what is all of this about? Well, let's start with just understanding the basics of the Christian calendar. The Christian calendar can be thought of as divided into two halves of a year. One half of the year celebrating the promises of Jesus that he brings to us, that he will be with us, that he has sent us a helper, and that he is coming again, and that he was, in fact, God and man at once in the person of Jesus Christ. So that half of the year runs from Christmas Day, which is the 25th of December, through the day of Pentecost, which is coming up next Sunday. So in there we have a series of feasts. Some of those feasts are on set days according to our current calendar, and some of them are what we call movable feasts, which are based more on the astronomy of the day related to what we're celebrating. So let's talk about those. So Christmas Day, for example, Christmas Day is December 25th. It's always December 25th. It has been set that way in the Christian calendar for quite some time. And January 6th is the Epiphany. The 12 days of Christmas are the 12 days between those two dates. A lot of people don't understand that. They think the 12 days have something to do with before Christmas, but they don't. The time before Christmas is Advent, and it's appropriate to think of that as the preparation for the coming of Christ. And I say coming future tense because the promise of Christ is that he is coming back for us. So when we think about that, we are celebrating and thinking about preparation in terms of both when Christ came historically and also when Christ is coming future tense. So think about Advent as that period. Advent is the 4 Sundays prior to December 25th, but December 25th doesn't always fall on the same day of the week. So Advent itself is a movable season. It's always 4 Sundays, and it's the 4 Sundays before Christmas. So Sunday might fall on the 24th sometimes, and then you would have Christmas the very next day. But if Sunday happens to fall on the 20th, then you'll have several days between when the last Sunday of Advent is and when Christmas happens because it's movable. So moving forward in the calendar, the next set is also movable, and it helps for that if you count backwards. So there's some astronomical events that happen. So the first thing is we have a time called the Vernal Equinox. That is the day where if you were standing on the equator, day and night would be equal amounts of time because we're halfway around our orbit of the sun. Now, that day is technically the first day or the beginning of spring. So going forward from that day, the next full moon is the next thing that you need to look for in the calendar. The Sunday following that full moon, that's Easter. So there can be a big variation in when Easter might be. It's possible for Easter to be at the last week of March. It's possible for Easter to be, as it was this year, in April. It can extend through different periods of time because when that full moon is related to when the vernal equinox is changes. So Easter is a movable feast. Once you find Easter, then we count backwards. So we have Holy Week before Easter, we have Palm Sunday, and then counting backwards from that, we have this season of time that we call Lent. And there's 40 days in Lent, but the Sundays don't count. So if we're counting backwards, you're going to have 40 days divided by 6, because we don't count the Sundays, and you're going to end up on a Wednesday. That Wednesday is the Wednesday that we refer to as Ash Wednesday. So Ash Wednesday, Lent, Palm Sunday, Easter, all of those are related to astronomical events when we are at the beginning of spring, so the vernal equinox, when the full moon happens following that. So that's a movable set of feasts. Then following Easter, we have a period of time called Eastertide. That's in recognition of when Jesus bodily came back from the resurrection and was wandering around earth talking to his apostles and instructing and leaving messages with people and converting Paul. All sorts of things that were happening in that period when Thomas was doubting him, all of those things. So when that happened, we get to a day, though, when Jesus bodily goes up to heaven. We refer to that day as the Ascension. That happened this last Thursday. And then following the Ascension, on the 50th day past Easter, we have a day called Pentecost. And that is the day Jesus promised us he was going to send us a helper to help us. That's when he sent the Holy Spirit back to help us and to be with us and to guide us as we go. I hope that helps you to understand where we are in the Christian calendar right now, and I hope that you have a wonderful week.